Marshi Smith joins us, former University of Arizona swimming champion, Pac-10 champ as well, and now she's the co-founder of the Independent Council on Women's Sports. Marshi, great to have you on. Hope you're well.
Thank you so much for having me. My husband thinks I've peaked now that I've made it on OutKick.
Nice. What led you to create and develop your organization?
Well, I'm a very accidental activist. I was a former NCAA champion swimmer in the backstroke, and so witnessing what the events that unfolded last season with Leah Thomas and what I felt was completely a reversal on my own experience back in 2005 when I was on the University of Arizona team. I quickly started reaching out to teammates, and one of my teammates, Carly Baldwin, asked if I would help to write a collaborative letter on behalf of the University of Arizona alumni swimmers. So we sent that to the NCAA, Mark Emmert, and the Board of Governors, as well as our own university. I was barraged with media requests suddenly to speak out about this at that time, and yet we were basically left on read by our athletic department and the NCAA. We still, 9 months later, have not had even a receipt of response from the NCAA. And so therefore, I was trying to come up with ways to communicate our message from the female athletes. I ended up going on the athletic director's website. There was a convention coming to my city, Las Vegas, where 2,000 athletic directors and staff were going to be landing at the airport for a 3-day convention. I got a exhibit booth inside their meeting. I was envisioning standing there alone, handing out flyers by myself to tell AEDs to stand up for their women athletes. And thankfully, I was connected through Riley Gaines, the Kentucky swimmer, to Kim Jones, who's the mother of an Ivy League swimmer. She quickly jumped on the bandwagon. We organized tons of women athletes, organizations that wanted to help. We put together our own 3-day conference that was going on at the same time down the street. That was just 54 days later to let the NCAA know that we have arrived, we're doing something, we're organized, and they can't continue to discriminate against their women athletes. Fast forward to last week, the NCAA met at their convention. We had the blueprint. We got a booth inside the meeting to talk to them directly. And this time we put together a rally of about 24 athletes to speak out on behalf of females again, and read a legal demand letter now that we're threatening to bring a lawsuit if they continue to discriminate against their women athletes.
And Marshi, it's amazing. You said you finished your swimming career in 2005 at Arizona. You're thinking back to 2005 and the state of women's sports, then going back a generation before that to Title IX, it was always the quote-unquote progressive side that helped women's sports, that pushed Title IX across the finish line, that helped women's sports everywhere. And now this juxtaposition of the quote-unquote progressive side is possibly hurting women's sports. That if you're on that side, it's allowing something that's not going to help girls and women compete fairly against each other. How do you come to grips with that when you look at this story and think about the history of women's sports when you participated to where it may be heading now?
Well, I'm ashamed to admit, to be honest, in 2005, I did not recognize what the women before me had to do to get Title IX in law in the first place. I have been re-educated now recently, now that it is under threat by not only the Biden administration, but all of these sports governing body leaders that are just taking a back seat to activists out of fear. And, we have a 50-year law. There are universities across the country that have thrown themselves multiple 50-year anniversary parties celebrating Title IX all throughout last year, ironically, using photos of us, the women who have built the success and the stories that they can then pat themselves on the back for now, 50 years later, while actively dismantling the opportunities of girls and women to continue to succeed, win, break records, be nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year. I mean, these are all things that we have just seen are now off the table for some women. And, there are athletes now that we're just not willing to let this go.
Marshi Smith, our guest, the co-founder of the Independent Council on Women's Sports. What's interesting to me, Marshi, is by and large, the overwhelming majority of people will agree with our stance, your stance on this. Why do you think the NCAA isn't responding to you?
We're told at the highest levels, not necessarily within the NCAA, but in sports governing bodies we're meeting with across all sports, that there are legal concerns, that they feel that the threat from the opposition activists is a bigger threat than of women. We actually had a board member tell us that he didn't believe girls would sue because women wouldn't do that. And hearing things like that firsthand is absolutely infuriating. And we are here to say that's not the case. And we are ready and willing to defend, sex discrimination in our sports and not give up opportunities for our own daughters, like my own 6-year-old who's just starting swim lessons now.
I got to say, Marshi, when we bring up this topic, unlike a lot of other things in our country right now, there's not a lot of division on it. Even people that you would think are on the far left side of this, they just kind of say, well, it doesn't happen enough to be a big issue. They don't argue for it to take place. What's it like in your shoes in terms of what you're hearing? Not what the NCAA is hearing or fear of a lawsuit from another advocacy group, but what you hear personally from the other side of this. Because personally, we don't hear a lot of people coming back and saying, you guys are crazy to say that it's only right for women to play against women and compete against women. We don't get a lot of the other side of that. What do you hear?
I hear the same thing. I mean, the majority of people understand this because it is a common sense reality, truth that exists, that men and women are different and we perform in athletics differently. People understand that. I think the opposition side is kind of banking on and hoping for silence and for fear of speaking out. Once we start talking about this openly with friends, family, go to our university presidents, our ADs, coaches, legislators, and start talking about this freely. This is not a 50-50 split on this. People recognize some people are choosing to prioritize inclusion over fairness and safety for women. And there is a choice to be made because we cannot have an equal balance. So the loud people on the inclusion side that are choosing to exclude women from sports and podiums and awards and record books are hoping on our silence and fear that we'll be canceled or that there's this big monster majority people that are going to come down on you. That is not the case at all. We need to just speak out about this and have some courage and talk to each other about this.
Marshi Smith, our guest, former NCAA champion. Had Leah Thomas competed against you, would you be a champion?
Well, we swam different strokes. No, no. For example, Matt Grievers won the 100 backstroke when I won the 100 backstroke. He won on the men's side, I on the women. He was 7 seconds faster than me. if we were compared head to head. However, we were seen as equal champions. He would have beat me by half a pool length. So the way that we can lift up women in athletics is by giving us our own category, because we are built differently. We are built of a different design and therefore warrant a different category, just like age, just like weight, just like ability, disability status. We make categories in order to offer opportunities to everyone. Otherwise, we would see 18 to 29-year-old men win every competition there is. So we need to start including all of our women and girls.
And I know, Marshi, in the letter that you read, it's, you're asking the NCAA to take direct and immediate action in establishing rules that keep female sports female.
Yes.
Direct and immediate action means what on a timetable? What do the legal experts tell you? What's the immediate future with this? How quickly are you getting the ball rolling on a lawsuit?
Well, we certainly have attorneys in place and athletes in waiting. We do not want to have to do this. The NCAA, in terms of timeline, if they say, oh, we will review this at a later date next year, we can't do this, that's absolutely untrue. Tomorrow, they can decide to defend the rights of their women athletes. And so we are giving them the opportunity to do so. We are asking them to do the right thing because this is the right thing.
How quickly do you go to the incoming president of the NCAA now that we've got a bit of a lame duck situation with Mark Emmert on the way out to try to make sure that these rules are instituted relatively quickly?
We already have.
And what was the feedback?
We are hoping to sit down with him in the near future. We are open and willing to talk to whomever, any day. Anyone in a leadership position, please reach out to us. We are reaching out to them. We are actively pursuing discussions at the highest levels.
Marshi Smith has been our guest, the co-founder of the Independent Council on Women's Sports. Marshi, thank you for the time. We're on board with what you're trying to accomplish here, and given the fear of lawsuits with NIL and everything else, let's also say this: they're afraid of Title IX lawsuits. I don't know why they're not responding to you in regards to this.
Maybe they will now.
Yeah, well, we hope so. Thank you, Marshi. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, there's Marshi Smith.